Are you guys ready, John? Kenji, is Kenji with us tonight? Thanks, Kenji. Board, can I get your attention? Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. and it's my pleasure to call the Oshtemo Charter Township regular board meeting of March 10th to order, and I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Looks like we have all members of the board here with us this evening, so item 3, remote location identification, is not necessary. Next is item 4. I invite a member of this body to share a the township core value.
I'll go ahead and do that. Core value: transparent governmental practices are of the highest priority.
Thank you, Trustee Sikora. Next, we have item 5, which is approval of the agenda. Do I have anyone on the board this evening wishing to make any changes to the agenda?
I have a request to change from the consent agenda to move item C, the budget amendment, off of the consent agenda, please.
Okay. We can take that up maybe after item 15.
Sure, that's fine. I don't have a problem with what it's covering, more of understanding how it all occurred and how we're going to deal with things like that.
Oh, sure.
Did you have?
Nope, I move to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
You mean the whole
Oh,
agenda?
we were doing the agenda.
I'm sorry, the whole agenda. You wanted to pull C off of the consent agenda. I move to approve the amended agenda.
Support.
I have a motion by Trustee Ford, support by Trustee Sikora. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is our time for public official and community partner updates. And I'm pleased to see we have our county commissioner and a representative from the road commission. And also, I had a chance, Ms. Ghost from Discover Kalamazoo let me know she was coming, so she's actually on the agenda. So Jane, do you want to kick us off, or Brian? Yeah. Since you're listed on the agenda, let's start with you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. I am here to give you an update on the indoor youth and amateur sports facility. I know that while this is a project that I think about every day, it's not necessarily a project you all are thinking about every day, so I just want to remind you a little bit about the project. It's an indoor youth and amateur sports complex. It is situated in where the yellow box is on this map, so within the boundaries of the city of Kalamazoo, but right there along 131, surrounded by Oshtemo Township. And it is primarily an indoor hard court facility where the primary sports to be played are basketball and volleyball, but there is also indoor turf. So that's just a reminder of the project. And what I've prepared to talk to you about is to share with you the latest plans for the facility, show some places where the project has evolved, I think in a very positive way, thanks to collaboration and feedback. And then lastly, when there were several questions that were asked of me when I last presented this project, and I wanted to make sure that I closed the loop on each of those. So I've got just the follow-ups on those outstanding questions. Okay, so a reminder that essentially what this is a project that will benefit local youth, essentially paid for by the visitor economy. So local use is prioritized Monday through Thursday. It's going to increase participation opportunities. It'll create jobs. It'll have significant economic benefits, primarily because of the out-of-town use, the economic impact from the hotel rooms and those non-local attendee days. That's where that almost $50 million of annual economic impact is coming from. This is the latest working site plan. This is subject to approval. So we have not yet completed site plan approval. But this shows you, and I'll explain how this has evolved from any iterations you've seen before. I will go back up to this.
Yeah,
See if
ma'am,
that's-
we don't take questions from the audience during presentation. That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So that is on 131 north of West Main. So this is the latest working site plan, and I'll go through and explain point by point how this has evolved, again, with the input of feedback. And then this is the latest iteration of Maple Hill Drive. Again, this is subject to approval. So this is just the latest working additions for both of those. Really, there has been significant evolution on both of those, and it really is thanks to collaboration. I think, throughout this whole project, people have been very generous with their input, their feedback, pointing out landmines. This is across every aspect of the project that has enabled us to improve as we go. And I think, as we think of the people who've stepped up and dedicated their time and energy and input, Oshtemo Township is right there at the top of the list. And I'm extremely, grateful to Oshtemo Township staff, but also the trustees. And, Trustee Sikora came to our neighborhood meeting and came to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. And obviously, and then, having Sherry on our board has been extremely helpful, not just related to specific Oshtemo Township things, but I believe, Sherry's made our board better. We wouldn't have our decision framework without, Sherry's input as an example. We're thinking about fundraising differently because of Sherry's input. I could give lots of examples. So we're very grateful to that collaboration. And I think part of that collaboration has been this cross-jurisdictional development team that was established at the end of October. So this is a team that meets every other week. We've actually had 10 meetings so far. So it includes the City of Kalamazoo, both Jody and Anna from Oshtemo Township. The Road Commission is represented at this meeting. We have MDOT at the meeting, Consumers Energy, and then because of the traffic study, Clark Dietz is usually present at the meeting as well. And then we've had other sources of input, and that includes, we had a neighborhood meeting. This is the invitation that went out to the neighbors of the site. Zoning Board of Appeals meeting had public comment and opportunity for input. We held 4 focus groups, different stakeholders throughout the community. We did site visits to comparable facilities. And then even the site plan review, which was a City of Kalamazoo process, Oshtemo Township and the Road Commission had the ability to weigh in on that at the first kickoff for the checklist process that we're going through. So based on all that input, we've made significant and I think meaningful improvements, again, thanks to the input. So for example, Trustee Sikora, when you came to the Zoning Board of Appeals, you were specifically talking about the tree removal. And so we have gone from preserving only 14% of trees to now preserving more than 25% of trees. And your specific suggestion at the Zoning Board of Appeals was, why doesn't the project acquire more land? And that's exactly what we've done. So by acquiring more land, you can see it off there to the east, that's enabled us to preserve more than 25% of trees on the site. We had a neighbor to the north, a neighbor who owns the property immediately north of this. He came to the neighborhood meeting and then also to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and he specifically expressed the concern that what the site will look like from his property. And then Oshtemo Township then echoed that concern during public comment. And so we have made 4 changes really with regard to that. The first is, you can see the 4 on the left, but on the right, we've now preserved, the dark green is where those are preserved trees. So we've preserved a line of trees immediately between the property lines. We have shifted the building farther west, which means that it's now in a lower elevation. So the building will be lower, because there's a significant elevation changes. We've shifted the building farther south, so away from that property line, and actually, practically speaking, as far south and west as we can go, on the property. And then we've even reduced the height of the building a little bit. So all of those changes, I think, were in response to the concern of the neighbor about the visibility from his property being able to see a warehouse. And again, all those changes were thanks to the input and the feedback. Another area of concern was, and this was this came from Oshtemo Township, but also others. How do we make sure that we're slowing traffic along Maple Hill Drive? The original design was just a wide, straight road. And The latest design, it includes roundabouts. So we're envisioning 2 roundabouts, one at the south end, not the south end of the drive, but this, the south end of what we are constructing, and then one at the north end at the property. And there's room for an additional roundabout in between as needed for future development. Also, to slow traffic, and again, I really appreciate the input on this. The original thought was a 32-foot wide road. We didn't need a center turn lane at this time, so it would be, 2 lanes, 2 very wide lanes. The current recommendation, and part of this has to do with a lack of sufficient parking on site. As part of getting the trees on, we don't have enough parking on site. It's kind of turning a problem into an opportunity, is actually, we are recommending temporary on-street parking. So you can kind of see the little hatches on the left there. So this, the latest design incorporates 40 on-street parking spots. So that will then, again, it's still the same 32-foot lane road, but with parking on one side and then 2 lanes. And what that will mean is, in the future, when there is future development and therefore additional parking available, we don't need on-street parking forever. When there's additional parking available in nearby, then we can restripe and have a center turn lane, because that will also mean that there's potential need for center turn lane. We've also removed unnecessary driveways. So that was pointed out that we're envisioning too many driveways. Do we really need this many driveways? So we have removed those in the latest iteration, and designed the roundabouts so that they can accommodate future development. So both at the lower roundabout and the northern roundabout, it's designed with spurs so that when there's future development, it can easily go in without needing a significant amount of road reconstruction. And then as needed, there is space for another roundabout that would obviously be construction if needed, but we don't know whether we'll need a middle roundabout or not. So we're not building that at this time. The original drawing had non-motorized along this road, but there really wasn't a lot of thought to connectivity with the rest of the network. And very much at the input of the team was the suggestion of connecting to other planned non-motorized networks. And so what you can see now at that lower roundabout on the right-hand side, it's zoomed in. I don't know if you can see a cursor moving or not, but you can see this is the non-motorized here to the west of the road. It crosses at the crosswalk, much like other roundabouts currently existing in Oshtemo Township. So it crosses at the crosswalk, and there's an island for safe pedestrian crossing. And it will then connect to the planned non-motorized to the southeast. So they'll have full connectivity within the non-motorized network. Further request, how do we think today about extension of Maple Hill Drive to the north for the future? So we don't know if we need this, but we may. And so significant changes there are that the driveway is going to be built to Kalamazoo County Road Commission standards. So we will have the depth, the surface depth, the pavement, everything will be built to Road Commission standards so that it can, in the future, be converted and just extended to a northern bound Maple Hill Drive. You saw on the previous slide where the retention pond is. This plan envisions that the drainage to the retention pond will be underground so that it will not interfere with the extension of the driveway in converting that into Maple Hill Drive. And then finally, by having a roundabout rather than what was previously envisioned, which is the driveway to T intersection, the roundabout is also appropriate for a road extension to the north. So all of those changes would not have happened without the collaborative input, and we're deeply grateful because we definitely feel like the project is better as a result. I did want to follow up from the questions that were asked of me at the July meeting. So the ones that I was not able to answer on the spot that I needed to circle back on, I just want to circle back. One was there was a question of why does not Oshtemo have a permanent seat on the authority board? And so we went back after that meeting and looked. The original ordinance, so it's not, and we, at the meeting back last year, we talked about bylaws and articles of incorporation and so forth. It's not in the it's the first place that the board designation comes up is actually in the ordinance that was passed by the county in April. So it preceded the authority, it preceded the the Articles of Incorporation, and it preceded the bylaws. So in that ordinance, and importantly, this was the ordinance that was included in the packet when the hotels voted in their referendum, 1 vote per room, to pass this district, this assessment district. The ordinance says that the primary beneficiaries are the transient lodging facilities, so basically the hotels. It defines qualified event centers and therefore the facilities that are the eligible use for the assessment revenue. And in the ordinance, it sets out what the parameters of the board of directors will be. So no less than 7 and no more than 11. And it says that 1 director shall be nominated and appointed by the county, and 1 shall be nominated and appointed by the governing body of the municipality where the primary youth sports facility will be located. So as you can see on the next, the ordinance envisions this first use, but it also envisions secondary use. So future things to be done with this assessment revenue as we go. Convention centers, sports, entertainment facilities, any of those are legitimate uses for the revenue. The only one of those that has a municipally appointed body is the first use, not the secondary uses. And then all other directors, the Owners Association, which is in this case Discover Kalamazoo, makes nominations and the county board approves. So that is what is written into the ordinance. There was also a question about whether assessment revenue could be used for road maintenance. Obviously, we're building the road, but there was a question about could the assessment revenue be used for road maintenance? This is the same page from before. The ordinance specifies that the revenues derived from the assessment may be used to finance the acquisition, construction, improvement, enlargement, repair, or maintenance of an event center itself, the facility itself. It does not allow for the use of assessment revenue for maintenance of road networks. There was a question about public safety response and who will be the first responder, given that it's a unique situation with the city of Kalamazoo, but surrounded by Oshtemo Township. So I spoke with Jeff Troyer. He is Executive Director of Consolidated Dispatch. I spoke with Victor Green because Chief Boyson was on vacation. He's Assistant Chief of KDPS. And the team has also spoken with Scott Brooks, the Fire Marshal. All of them were unanimous and perfectly consistent. KDPS will be the first responders for this. It is in the city of Kalamazoo. They will be first responders. And the Consolidated Dispatch clarified for me that with the geolocation and everything that they have, that they will know that the first responders are to be KDPS. And
I appreciate, can I just chime in?
Yeah.
For a note for the future?
Yeah.
That's the part, I get where you're going here, but we're also going to have to measure Maple Hill Drive is a part of
Thank you.
that as well. So while
Yes.
city services, you're setting them up, that I totally get that, and I think that's great, but there will be measuring of impact on Maple Hill Drive that is in the township.
Yes, and thank you. I should have put that in there. Yes, so if there's something happening on Maple, if there's an accident, say, of somebody going to or from a tournament on Maple Hill Drive,
That's us.
then that is not KDPS because
Right.
that's not in the city. That's
Right.
correct. So the facility, because I think, the examples where if there's a medical emergency, what was discussed it was fire and medical emergencies. In that case, obviously in KDPS, they do both fire and first aid, the same responders do. So
Right. I mean, we're going to
yeah.
be taking a look at the traffic or the crash data, obviously, at the corner of Maple Hill Drive and West Main after this goes live.
Yeah.
So just bear in mind
100%.
that just because KDPS is going to respond first to the scene doesn't mean that it's not going to have an impact on us.
Understood. Sorry, I should have clarified. Yep. And there was also a question about, what about the fact that the only way to access a facility is going to be Maple Hill Drive. What I was told by both KDPS and Consolidated Dispatch, that is not unusual. And then, so I looked at the map, and there's actually several places where the KDPS has to go from the city of Kalamazoo to a facility in the city of Kalamazoo through other cities or municipalities. That happens very often. So that is par for the course for them.
I have a quick question on that,
Sorry,
too.
yeah.
With the, were there discussions as far as, and I guess let me back up. Assuming that there are going to be events, that there's going to be a large amount of people coming and going at the same time, has there been discussions with KDPS about traffic control when people are leaving? Like if traffic gets backed up, I recall many times when I worked on the street to be doing traffic control at Wings Stadium just to keep the flow of traffic through Sprinkle going.
Right. I think we've now brought on an operator. So sports facilities companies is the operator that we've chosen. They operate, facilities like this across the country. I think I'd like to take that to them and see how they handle it at other facilities. And I do think that, I think it probably depends on the sport, because in some instances, there'll be a mass turnover where all the games, and my understanding is probably like volleyball would be an example of that, where there's like a morning set of games and then an afternoon set of games, and so all the people are kind of coming and going at a similar time, versus other sports where games are staggered to end. I know, for example, with soccer tournaments that are currently hosted in Kalamazoo County at River Oaks County Park, they deliberately schedule the games so they're staggered, so they don't have the significant, traffic jams. But let me understand about how, when there's that, I guess, wings is an example. Miller Auditorium is another example, right? Or hockey games, there's other examples of that, of when then you engage.
Yeah, and with the roundabouts particularly too, actually makes me think of Madawan schools when, you're dropping the kids off in the morning. The roundabouts are great, except they get backed up, and then, traffic is getting backed up because nobody can get in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know what I mean? Other
Right.
than maybe from the highway, those people are all getting in because the flow is going that way, but everybody else is stuck.
Right.
So just something to think of.
Thank you.
There's, a special needs population that lives very close to that. And that would be traffic impacts on Township. And so, I'm very curious how we're going to control traffic and provide safety for a special needs population that lives right there at West Main and Maple Hill. They already have issues crossing West Main, add this additional traffic. It's quite impactful to the residents there, and I want to make sure they are being considered in this.
Yeah, thank you.
Got the school right there too.
And that's actually a great segue to the last, because we also talked about, will we do a traffic study? And we committed to doing a traffic study. I'm delighted to tell you that the traffic study is underway with Clark Dietz. And in addition to measuring the existing traffic, we've also provided them, because I think this, it's the nature of the facility that creates, unique issues. And so we've provided to them Placer AI visitation data by hour, by day of week, looking at the last 3 years from 3 comparable facilities. So 3 facilities that are very similar, the 8 basketball courts or 16 volleyball courts, very similar design, to show them what to anticipate so that they're building that into the traffic study. And they're looking at, essentially year 4, it will be the year we expect it'll be like in a running state of operation. And the traffic study, much like the development meetings, it's a collaborative team approach, and we're actually leveraging that established cross-jurisdictional development team for the traffic study. We really appreciate the collaboration on that, and the results are expected in about 4 weeks for that. So we do not have the results back yet. So just in summary, I want to say that I firmly believe this project is stronger because of Oshtemo Township input. We are preserving more trees, we're reducing visibility to the neighbors, we have a safer road design, we're closer to our parking goal, we have better integration with other development, and we're better designed with the potential future than we would have been without your input. So we are grateful, and we thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Any questions from the board at this time? Trustee Sikora? Sure.
Thank you for that update. I really appreciated what I can only say is almost transformational, if I can use that word, from my concerns at the beginning to what you didn't have now. I mean, it's incredible. I'm speechless. How's that? You really worked hard on it. I'm glad you took all the feedback and worked with the neighbors and a lot of the suggestions. I was going to ask tonight, how you've taken that all back, and it looks simply fabulous compared to where you started. So I'm really happy to hear that, and I congratulate or laud you and your team and everyone who worked on it to being able to take that feedback at the different meetings and come up with a different plan. The only, I guess, question that I would have is, one of the issues when we talked earlier was, there's only so much money to spend. You changed a lot of things here. Are you still okay in your budget, or are you coming really close? Okay, awesome, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. 'Cause
Yep, I mean, first off, I really have to acknowledge, Anna and Jody, who have dedicated an incredible amount of time and patience, because, they're sick of me saying this is our first time doing this, and we really, and so the project is stronger because of the input. It absolutely is, so we are very, very grateful. Right now, it looks like we are, there were times when we talked about it, we even designed on the facility, what if to do all this? I'm going to show it, there we go. Like, what you may or may not have noticed about this facility, it's designed so that if we have to sacrifice something, we can sacrifice the indoor turf, if we can't come in under budget. So, we have contingency plans in case of emergency. Right now, we feel pretty good that we're going to be able to deliver this on budget. Because, yes, we do have a fixed amount of money. So.
Yeah.
And I appreciate.
Any other,
Okay.
trustee Chapman?
I appreciate you calling out the help from township resources, but that's taking away township resources from other busy projects they have. And I'm sure the township's not being compensated for that. It's, again, what I said before, it's surrounded on three sides by the township. The township is incurring costs. Jody's a very busy person, has a lot on her plate, and this can take away from the work that she's doing. Again, is the township going to receive any compensation for this or consideration? Because we have a busy road that's going to get busier with future development, both yours and some others, and I just feel that it's not being addressed. And I appreciate you allowing input, but that also is extra work being put on their plate when they have township work to do.
Right. I think what I would, so this is obviously, this is not a for-profit facility. The facility itself, while it is, and we very much appreciate the input from Oshtemo, it pales in comparison to the work that is being put in by the city of Kalamazoo. And it is in the city of Kalamazoo, so that they need to do that, right? That is because it's in their jurisdiction, and they are committing, significantly, more resources for something that is in the city of Kalamazoo as a nonprofit facility that will not generate any, for example, property tax income. And even on that note, the opportunity for future development within the city, for-profit development that can generate property tax revenue and other revenue, is fairly limited in the city just because of the geography. I do believe, I tell you very sincerely, I do believe that this project will spur further development within Oshtemo Township of a for-profit nature that will ultimately be of benefit to the township general funds, much more so than the city of Kalamazoo.
And I'd also just like to point out too on that, I totally understand what you're saying, but to look at the positives too, we do have to understand that a lot of these people are going to be frequenting our Oshtemo Township businesses too, which also makes it more attractive for businesses, so there's that.
Any other questions for Jane from the board?
Just
Trustee
one.
Sikora?
Thank you. Just one kind of related to it. I am like I said, I'm very impressed with the way you've changed things and addressed a lot of these issues that I thought were pretty important. I noticed that you're also maybe involved in hockey rinks, which it would have been, based on this, it'd be nice. I'm glad that you're getting involved with that and working with the organizations that need ice, and because of the situation change there. And, maybe it would have been nice if you had also been able to be involved a couple of years ago with the downtown arena. And, if we could have a big place that has a big area, not a big area, a big organization that takes 30,000 foot look at everything and where things go and stuff. It might have been nice to be able to coordinate it. That's not against you, I'm just kind of commenting out loud. This is the kind of stuff that I think the community as a whole needs, an organization like yours, who's able to work across jurisdictions to bring people together and go through that and work with the varying entities and take that feedback versus one area, one municipality working and doing everything on their own without maybe total input from the surrounding communities. You've done a great job with this, at least so far, and I kind of wish, and I hope that you're going to be involved in the next thing and the other things.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you. Obviously, and if anyone has any specific questions about the situation with the ice rinks, I'm happy to address them. I think it is noteworthy that the feasibility study we just commissioned on that, because of the changed situation, said that actually it's, we've got to pursue this project, but this kind of jumps up to be the number 2 priority, solving the ice needs in the community. Now will be kind of the next thing that we try to figure out how to tackle. And on that, I actually mentioned this last time I was here, and right after that, we kicked it off. We kicked off an RFP process. We have engaged a company to do a tourism master plan to do exactly, what you're saying, and not just as relates to sports, but really, what are the tourism assets that Kalamazoo County needs? Sports tourism is part of it, but, how do we go beyond that, and how do we continue our track record of growth through the next, 5, 10, 20 years? To make sure that we are doing it in conjunction with the community. So it's done in a way that is welcomed by the neighbors and not in a way that is, against the goals of our municipalities and the residents themselves. So we are, Discover Kalamazoo is leading that process. So.
Thanks, Jane. I just want to thank you for coming forward and sharing the progress with the board. Can you remind me, when is the traffic study going to be ready?
About 4 weeks.
Still 4 weeks out, okay. I just want to agree that it's been a lot of work, even just on the authority board, and in my role, there's been a lot of work from a lot of different partners that have gone into it. And Trustee Chapman, I just want to share, from my lens, the city of Kalamazoo didn't have to involve us at all. And even though it's been a lot of work for our staff, I also think we ended up with a better product and that fits into our community better. But also I want to talk a little bit, or I want to emphasize partnership and community collaboration, because I don't view this as a quid pro quo relationship. Jane spent dozens of hours serving on our thought leaders for comprehensive master plan, and Discover Kalamazoo didn't come, are you going to pay our CEO to do that? So even though I appreciate that you are looking out for how our staff time, how this is an extra thing for them, I think this goes further to our idea of how do we work collectively with our community around us to create great projects, like where is the ice rink going to go, or what's going to happen with the. So I want to thank you for always reaching out, even when I know sometimes it was a little painful, because I am often the wet blanket on the authority board. But you continue to be positive and ask questions and work to find solutions that balance what's been identified as the need for this project and include your neighbors around. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for the collaboration and the input to make a better project. So we are on track, on budget for opening in September of 27.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Welcome our County Commissioner, Mr. Dale DeLue. See, you just got an update about the project too. I thought you'd like that.
I did, and I have to say, it wasn't until I became County Commissioner that I realized the value of Discover Kalamazoo to our community. And Jane Ghosh and her staff is just, again, until you if you don't know what they do, you don't appreciate them. But once you find out, it's just, Kalamazoo is very fortunate to have them, and I appreciate that. So just some real quick updates. On the county board, after some lengthy sessions, we finally approved and signed some contracts with some labor unions, specifically at the Sheriff's Department and the juvenile home, which were both long overdue, but it was a long process, but we got it done. The Landing Place Family Transitional Housing Unit is finally set to open next month. This is one of those things that every month it's next month. But I don't know, you may have seen in the local media that the facility they bought used to have an indoor pool. Well, pools lead to nothing but problems. And so, of course, during the renovation, they found mold. And in order to do it right, they had to back the project up and to do some mold remediation. Also, we received several letters of support, including one from Oshtemo, encouraging us to continue with the process of seeking state funding for the household hazardous waste facility. Ours is woefully inadequate at this point. It's so popular that we need much larger facilities, and their estimated cost is at least $7 million, if not more. It's going to have to be relocated because they need 15 acres. And once hopefully the funding is secured, we'll be discussing where to put it. And also lastly, I also serve on the Veteran Service Board for the Veteran Service Office. And about 2 weeks ago, we had the very first session for the Veterans Treatment Court. And in that court, there were two individuals who have been dealing with the criminal justice system. They didn't do very well. They're both veterans, and the Veteran Service Office, with the help of Judge Jones, has put together a team. And so every veteran that is now facing any type of criminal charges will have a team helping them navigate the system. It's not a process to try and prove their innocence. This is once they're found guilty of something, just to navigate the system and make sure they're successful in what penalties they face. So they've had issues in the past, and so this is the first time, and I think just being there and hearing the stories of these two, it's gonna, at least these two, it's gonna be a success. So looking forward to that. So, any questions?
Any questions for the commissioner?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have one. You know I have one. I believe I read, and I don't remember where I read it, but the chair of the board and the administrator are planning at one of the upcoming county commission meetings to have a dialogue, a public dialogue about the sheriff's office, the contracts with the sheriff's office.
Yes. I don't know if that's a public dialogue. I got the impression it was just between the board leadership and the administration and the sheriff,
okay.
but I'm not.
That's not how I read it, but okay. Well, then I'll follow up again because, as you know, we're in a one-year renewal with the sheriff's office, and I did have a short conversation with Dr. Catlin, and we agreed to have different positions, but I was hoping at some point to find out how the county was going to move that forward in a conversation with their contract partners, so.
Okay, I will look into that tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, name is Larry Stayhauer, Commissioner with the Road Commission, Kalamazoo County, and your liaison. Just a few items. We're looking forward to a joint meeting with you in April, so we don't have to get into details tonight. I will say staff has appreciated the collaboration regarding the youth center. I'm pleased to hear that as a commissioner, that staff's collaborating with other entities, so that's appreciated. It sounds like they've worked through lots of issues. We're supposed to be flush with new road money. Hasn't happened yet. We're hoping to see some trickle in, maybe in a month or two, maybe more by fall. But reality is we're down a couple million. So we're really happy we have the PAR Fund program. That's on your agenda later. So thank you for being partners in that. That's enough for right now, unless you have specific questions. Not that I have specific answers, but.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Stayhauer?
Yes, I do.
Trustee Sikora?
So I listened virtually to your meeting today.
Notice that.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, and one of the items on your agenda today was about a contract, and then there was some question from trying to get enough bids, and that there was some confusion about, or misinterpreted, whatever, about quality control, or who was responsible for, I was trying to find it here on your, anyway.
Did it relate
quality.
to the chip seal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so where I'm going with this is, the street I live on was chip sealed last year, after a couple of years ago when whatever was rebuilt, I don't know what you actually call it, sorry. So, and it was falling apart, parts were peeling off last time. Last year it came through, chip sealed it, excuse me, last year, didn't even last the winter, it's already peeling off. Quality control, I don't know whose quality control. Also, drive down 4th Street both at the intersection of KL, peeling off, the intersection with Almena, who I brought up with your predecessor who was here. There was some patching done with it last year, the year before, long gone, it's just a pothole mess. Where is the quality control? And you don't need to answer, but
I'm not the technical
because I'll bring
person.
it up,
Yeah,
at our
yeah.
joint meeting, because,
Yeah.
it's, part of it's right where I drive every day, right in front of my house kind of thing, and it's like, we've made, that's a local road by where I live. Quality's an issue. I've been a long time supporter of the road commission. I happened to be a trustee at the time before Joanna Johnson became executive director. So I've been pushing for road funding and increases in road funding for a long time. But I got to tell you, the whole thing with quality and, we don't have enough money to do stuff, that's old. I don't see we're making a lot of progress. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, because it's, there's a lot of people wondering, hey, they just came through here last year and paved this, and it's already fallen apart. So anyway, those are my comments.
There's a lot of effort put into quality control. In that specific bid, there were some extra measures. That slurry gets produced, I'm going to say overnight, not literally, but shipped the next day and used in the field. And one quality control step is knowing you're getting the right product. And unfortunately, the testing or portions of it happen after the fact. Now, does it relate to the specific things you mentioned? I don't know, but anyway, that's a good question to deal with our staff that are more technical, and we share the concern.
Sure.
So I'll say I'm frustrated. I drive some of the same roads, experience some of the same things, so I have similar questions. I just want to also imply, I thank all of our staff. Like the collaboration here, it's not like you always agree, but you find ways forward and try to work towards quality, and we're public servants like you, so doing well is important, doing it reasonably cost-effective is important. So it's a tough position, so thanks, I appreciate your concern.
Yeah, and I appreciate your coming to our meetings and representing us. This just gives me the opportunity
Yeah,
to say something
yeah.
to you.
Well, I'll highlight that with staff,
Yeah,
that you'd
and
like
I'm
some
not-
feedback.
I know potholes happen and all
Yeah,
that stuff, and,
yeah.
you
But
know.
one that's
but
concerned
when-
us-
When the road's peeling it off in sections, it's like, that's not right.
One we don't understand, or talking with staff, is where we're getting some delamination, where it's taking the underlying material as well with it. So we don't know the solution to that all the way. I mean, we're glad to see that asphalt's penetrating, the emulsion's penetrating into the underlying pavement, but when it's peeling that up and you're getting more of a pothole rather than just immediate surface. So more than you want to deal with tonight, a good subject for joint meetings, so
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Stahauer? Oh, he's running away. Okay.
Respecting your time tonight, that's all.
appreciate
Just not running away.
All right,
I'm
thank
going to
you.
stay for your meeting or plan to.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there any other, or anyone else here wishing to make, I don't see any other public officials Or if you're a community partner from an agency, I don't see any either. So we will close item 6 and move to item 7. This is the time for people to make public comment on consent agenda or non-regular session items. So if you're here to make public, you'll have another opportunity for public comment at the end. But if you're here specifically to comment on the consent agenda or non-regular session items, this would be the time for you to make public comment. Oh, you got one ahead of you. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. No, you're fine. I was acknowledging a hand raised here.
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Don't be sorry. If you could introduce yourself.
I'm Terry. I live on Van Cal, and we are less than a half a mile away from the BESS, and I just haven't had a chance to talk with you about it. Last Monday, we celebrated 20 years in our home, and we love it. And I'm too long in the tooth to start over again, and that's what I would have to do if we did this. I have a lot of neighbors that are near me, and I care about them. I care about everybody. I don't know if you live near it, or it's just important that I was able to tell you that we do not support that. And I appreciate you listening. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Do we have anyone else wishing to make public comment at this time? Welcome. If you could please introduce yourself to the board.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm really concerned about how objective the traffic study is going to be, and any further development in that area, it's going to be a nightmare. When I tell people where I live, they just go. I try to avoid it because it's such a compressed area of so much stuff, and it's so busy. I have to go through so many traffic lights just to get anywhere. It takes forever. I try to avoid it, but I don't have a lot of options where I live, so. And I have a question. I kind of lost track of what was happening with the golf course because of family needs. So what's going on with that?
Mary, the public comment is not a time for back and forth questioning with the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But we will follow up with you to answer your questions
Okay.
in one way or another.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi there, I'm Katie Schneider. I live also over on South Van Cal Street, and honestly, I wouldn't feel right if I didn't get up here and speak out about the bus tonight. One of the big things that really drove home today is that I spent time with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Services today. They spent over an hour and a half out at our farm today. And if you're not sure who they are or what they do, that is an agency that helps farmers, ranchers, and private landowners conserve soil, water, and other natural resources through science-based and often funded conservation practices. I can't even start to get into the conversations that we had today about the bus going in next door. I know there's the fire worry. There's also a massive erosion worry there. If you know anything about that soil, which I've known about this for 2 years now as a farmer, it is highly erodible. The dust alone that they're expecting to come off of all of that farmland being cleared and then having the bus put in there is significant. We have real worries about our farm. As pumpkin farms go, those leaves on those pumpkins, you keep those covered in dirt, you will have dead plants. That is part of our livelihood. It is my hope that that will be my 100% livelihood. But after that conversation today, we are deeply troubled. We have also had a lot of conversations about grants and other things through the USDA, and all of those are also a deep concern. I've had many people stop and ask me and tell me, congratulate me, that the bus has been stopped in Oshtemo. People believe that a moratorium means it's been stopped, it's over. And I understand the media has a lot to do with that, and I understand how confusing every single part of this is. It was wrote that way for a reason, and it continues to be that way. but nothing has been stopped. And when you line up the developer's timeline to the moratorium, nothing has actually been paused either. It all lines up. At the same time, nothing has been done to protect residents from health and safety concerns. No committees, no input from subject matter experts. I know we're waiting on Eagle, I know we're waiting on the MPSC, I know we're waiting on Graham's sustainability. All of their presentations are out there, and you'll find they are not best experts. Eagle will tell you about their grants, the MPSC will tell you about PA 233, and the Graham Institute can give you a little bit of help on zoning, but not much. To our east, Elmina has an energy committee, they're digging in deep. But the bigger thing is Antwerp has brought in a very well-educated attorney. She was phenomenal. She is from the Michigan Township Association. She knows the laws surrounding not only PA 233, but also the other related laws to BES, like PA 235 and PA 234, and the rights and responsibilities of townships under the Michigan Constitution. I highly recommend contacting her if you have questions about PA 233 and how to protect your residents. Someone else that the township could look into, Kalamazoo County Sustainability Coordinator, Taylor. She is phenomenal. She understands BES. She understands how it works. I had some time with her at the Environmental Council, and I highly recommend bringing her in.
1 minute.
Sounds like a lot of resources go into a lot of township projects. Why not this? You guys have known about it since last June at a minimum. Why not this? We have a massive compilation of ordinances that stand outside of PA 233 that can be tightened to protect residents. How about putting some real teeth into those? Saying that someone has to have a consultation to be approved is not the same as saying they have to have sign-off. Right now, the rules of engagement for BES highly favor developers and not resident safety. My question is, when will this committee be formed, and what resources are we going to put into this? We heard for the youth organization. Great, that's something that's important. We've heard it for the master plan. Yep, trees and roads and where we're gonna put roads through people's yards. Yep, that's important, but I can't even start to tell you how important this is.
Time, Ms. Schneider, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment at this time? Okay, don't see any hands raised online. Okay, then I will close this public comment, and we'll move to item 8, which is the consent agenda, which now consists of the meeting minutes of the regular meeting of February 24th, 2026, and the receipts and disbursements. Is there any questions about the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Support.
I have a motion by trustee Ford and support by trustee Sikora. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we'll move to item 9, which is discussion and consideration regarding the appointments for the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Let me open that memo in the packet, please. As described in the packet, we opened, notified and advertised the openings on the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, beginning in January 28th, and then closed those. We'd received plenty of applicants by February 18th. I interviewed all applicants. As you can see, all applicants received the same set of questions, and I took notes summarizing their answers. A rubric was designed to guide the selection of the applicants, and the recommended candidates are shown in this memo. I would like to share with the board that I'm very proud to bring forward Grace Engels to the Oshtemo Charter Township Planning Commission. Ms. Engels, in addition to being a professional brand developer, she works with Newell Corporation and is heavily involved in project design, but has other, in her previous residences while going through her education, which I might add, she's a Yale graduate, worked in community development in other facets of her life as she traveled to this area. She's been in the township, I believe, 8 years. And one other consideration was location, making sure that the nominees that I put before you represented a varied area in the township. And so she does live on the west side of the township in our more countryside area. Her interview stood out to me that she came prepared to discuss the township with the perspective of the master plan. She had clearly read the master plan and pointed to several examples in the master plan of why she wanted to get involved, because she was really excited about the plans that were laid out within there. She was certainly familiar with the challenges that we see as a township, but gave very clear answers as to what the positive things for our township were. So it's my pleasure to bring Ms. Engels forward to you for consideration for the Planning Commission. Next, bringing forward Meg Blakovich as my recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals second alternate. Ms. Blakovich is now retired, although all my friends that are retired are actually busier in retirement than they were in their working life. But Dr. Blakovich holds a PhD in evaluation and measurement from Western Michigan University. She had a very full and robust career in her professional years. I do see that skill set being very valuable to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The thing about Ms. Blakovich's interview that stood out to me was every question she tied back to what she liked about the core values of the township, and gave excellent examples of how we as a township need to continue to strive to meet those core values and be open communicators. So at this time, unless there's any questions of the board, I know Ms. Blinkovich is with us, and unfortunately, Ms. Engels is traveling out of state today and unable to join us. But is there any questions for me from the board? If there's no questions, take public comment on this item. At this time, if there's any public comment, this would be the time to provide public comment. Seeing none, I will close public comment. If there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the appointments of Grace Ingles to the Planning Commission and Dr. Meg Blinkovich to the Zoning Board of Appeals as second alternate.
Support.
I have a motion by Clerk Farmer with support by Trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to add that I'm glad you were able to find so many quality
Oh my
candidates.
gosh. Let me speak to that. Well, first of all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The depth of candidates, we had a really excellent slate of people come and apply for these appointments. Varied experience, education, but these two really stood out as I went through the process. So thank you for that. Welcome, Ms. Blakovich, and Ms. Ingles, if you watch this, welcome, and we'll be in touch to get you
Sworn in.
sworn in and onboarded and all the good stuff. What time do we have here? 6:30. Next, we have item 10, discussion and consideration. This is turning this over to our treasurer, correction of police and fire special assessment district tax bills. It really was.
So I brought this before you for a review. The memo is self-explanatory, but it was brought to our attention that some parcels were missing special assessments. So I reached out to our program that connects assessing with tax, and there was a disconnect. The first key was that those assessments are in the same area, and in most cases, it only pulled the fire and not the police. BSNA does not have a resolve, and so There was two options. One, forego and correct moving forward, or two, take all of these parcels as 157 to the Board of Review in July, which would then allow us to send out invoices that could be payable through November. If they weren't paid on November, allow us to put them on the 2026 winter bill with a 2025 tag as to what it was for. The fix going forward, we can't test any fixes because if we test them right now while I still have the 2025 winter database, it changes that database and it's not at the county yet. So the assessor has some ideas as to where we can move those and hopefully they self-generate like everything else does, like transit and things like that, but we're not sure yet. Having said that, regardless, I don't really trust BSNA as far as like communicating at the moment. So my solid fix going forward for next year is in October, review all of these parcels one by one again and make sure everything's correct before we send them to printing.
So I don't know that is there any action that's necessary, or are you just asking for board support on this plan?
So I'm legally required to notify the board, but it was discussed and suggested that it come public to a board meeting, so if there's any questions, I can answer those questions and not risk any cross-questioning for open meetings and things like that. So I'm happy to answer any questions or take any input as to how I'd like to move forward if you disagree or
Yeah, I have a
agree.
question. I have a few questions on this one when I saw it. So from what I'm reading and understanding that these kind of fell through the cracks because they had a prior exemption, or they had an exemption, and then they were sold to someone, and then it didn't qualify for the exemption anymore, but the exemption stayed? Did I understand
So
that right?
three of the 157, two were veterans exemptions and one was a poverty. And yes, those people sold that property last year and others came in and it didn't re-trigger the
So that was
special
only
assessment.
three.
That was only three. All of the other ones are property splits, where the home property kept one assessment and then the new parcel number either took one assessment or none. And so we have BSNA.net, so assessing.net and tax.net stopped communicating. Only on things that triggered new parcels.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up question to that is then, was there onus on the landowners should they have known this? Like, should there have been any checks and balances on their part that this was missed, or is this completely the township's?
I don't
miss?
think
That question would be more along the lines of how much people actually know about taxes. If I did it, if I split property, I would know. But that's because of the extent of what I know within tax rules and tax laws, and to expect somebody to go, hey, I'm missing this special assessment, they may not know.
So there's no checks and balances on their side, but we probably, it sounds like, need to get better checks and balances on our side.
Well, it's a data transfer issue within BSNA. So when the assessor loads the information in assessing.net, which is a BSNA program, in this instance, when the properties get split, and it's correct on the assessing side, she turns the tax roll over to the treasurer, and for some reason, those splits didn't transfer all the data for the new parcels.
Okay.
So we actually had a call, actually, the treasurer and the assessor had a call with BSNA, and then we tried to set up a meeting to discuss what our experience, and then could they run a report that would be helpful? And they did not provide a helpful report, which is why the treasurer had to go through the properties line by line. But we tried to set up a meeting, and I invited Attorney Porter, as I often do, to a meeting just for extra set of ears, and they wouldn't meet with us virtually. So, so for this right now, we, needed to bring this forward, make the corrections. The the big challenge will be getting our, the software provider to make the fix on their end so it doesn't, so we don't have to, so the treasurer doesn't have to look at each parcel one at a time.
And if they can't, I will. That's just the bottom line. I mean, that's not acceptable.
Okay, no, I completely agree, and I'm glad to hear that it was more, less our fault per se than it was a glitch in the computer system. So that makes me feel a lot better about actually making the decision to not forego it. So,
Is this glitch only limited to this year? Does this go back further?
These are parcels that were split in '24 that would have affected, so it affects '24 and '25. But anything that started in '24 would have been on my 2025 database because the assessor works a year ahead of me.
So when's the last time that you, because you, within the last 3 years, you've done this full parcel evaluation or full evaluation for the tax roll, right?
Yes, 2.5 years ago, I did a whole one-by-one parcel assessment.
Now, under the statute, you'd only be able to go back 1 year anyway, so it is what it is, unfortunately.
So I read through this memo. This issue concerns me pretty gravely. What I read did not indicate to me that there's an issue at BSNA. What I read indicated we asked BSNA and they were not clear with us about where the issue lies. So I've got about 12 different questions I want to walk through here. So feel free to anybody else to jump in at any time, but I just want to try to understand this. This type of problem kind of falls in my wheelhouse for what I do professionally. So I just want to kind of think through this, and there's two things that I think are going to be required at the end of this. One is a root cause analysis that tells us exactly what happened and what caused the problem, and a resolution. So there's a lot of talk about the resolution in that memo. What I'm interested in is getting down to a root cause here. If this happened this way, and it wasn't a vendor issue, then to me it's a process problem somewhere, and we're liable to have many years of this potentially having happened. So with that preamble out of the way, I guess the first question I want to know is who identified the issue and when? How did this get brought to your attention?
It was brought up at a meeting.
By whom? Tell me more. How did you know? How did we know that? Did a resident call, complain? What happened?
We heard one resident indicate in a roundabout fashion that some people weren't being assessed.
Okay, and that triggered a quick review or whatever, and that's how we found the problem. Okay. How much time elapsed between when we sent those 25 winter tax bills and when we came to realize we might have a issue with these SADs, roughly?
Almost the full season. So they went out and hit mailboxes December 1st, and this was generated, this report was generated 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right, so when we split parcels, that's a pretty common thing that townships do regularly. So I would expect that this issue has happened every year since 1837, or whenever, the Michigan compiled laws came into effect for us. So what's the step-by-step process from department to department of splitting a parcel and then updating the tax roll?
If you would, well, the
And-
assessor is out doing board of review, and so albeit I can talk very high level, I can't give, I think, the kind of detail. So if you
Okay.
don't mind, she knows we're talking about this.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I would step out and ask Christine to join us.
Oh, that's fine. She can come and join us. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll provide these questions to you guys too, so you can look at them afterwards as well. But-
Yeah, on my end, before the assessor can speak, when she does her split, just like tax millages and the CCTA transit, which is initially a voted millage on certain areas, it self-uploads. Now, there's certain things I have to manually upload, like veterans exemptions, poverty exemptions, pre-denials or pre-approvals.
Okay.
Those I have to manually upload, but what we're discussing today is supposed to be an automatic upload.
Okay.
And when I talk to, so, talking to BSNA is quite frustrating. They've turned over staff
Sure.
so much that one conversation was, oh, it's never done that. It's never transferred it. And it's like, no, it has. It has. It's even transferred one, if you can just look at these properties, and not both. Like, no, it's never done that. Okay. So we finally got a hold of somebody that's been there for 19 years. And she provided me a report that she thought was going to be beneficial. It took her probably 6 hours to build, because it didn't exist. And then when I ran the report, I'm like, oh, there's only 3 parcels. Great. Problem solved. But when I started digging into each individual parcel, what that report told me is the parcels that should have had that, not that didn't and should have. So that was a complete waste of time, and they don't know this person specific, because when you call, you get one, person, kind of like an IT person, doesn't know what else to do.
Right. Okay. For anybody watching, we're just waiting for the township supervisor to return.
Should we take a brief recess?
I'm not chairing the meeting. I'm not going to call for a recess.
Yeah, that might have been a better idea, simply because they could have an appointment right now with someone and just not going to walk away from that. But anyway.
So anyway, I keep talking. So we had 2 options essentially, is let it go and correct it going forward.
Sure.
But then I kind of took on, I guess, my self-moral. If I'm paying an assessment and my neighbor's not, and the township is notified that they didn't, and the township goes, well, oh, whatever, we'll fix it next year, I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah, no,
And so my-
integrity in the process and
Yes.
the role of the job
Yeah.
is to collect the taxes on behalf of the community.
Yes.
Like, that has to happen, and it has to happen correctly.
Yeah.
So I'm not interested in, punitive stuff here, but we got to resolve this so it never ever happens again. We can't have public trust lost in our ability to perform the basic functions here.
Do you guys see a problem with her course of correction?
I'm sorry?
She's laid out how she plans to deal with it in the future. Is that not?
That's part of the process here, but I think if you don't know how we got into that state, then you're guessing that resolution, but.
Hi,
Hi, how are you, Christine?
I'm busy.
You're busy, huh? Okay, me too. We're talking about the topic of the missing
Sure.
SADs.
Yeah.
The question I had for the group here was if we could get a little step-by-step process for how a typical split would happen, and like, how does that work flow through the departments?
Sure.
And result in an updated tax roll?
Correct. So once everything's finalized with the split, I then have to obviously split the properties apart. I have to allocate value. Once I do that, I go into BSNA. There's a split tool that's run, and I copy over all the user fields, such as fire, police, transit, CCTA, brownfield. All that gets transferred to the new parcel.
Okay.
And then make sure that, buildings are transferred over, copied over, land size is adjusted if need be.
Okay.
All that is then put into the system. I then produce a split list that I give the GIS people, and I also give it to the treasurer.
Okay. The most recent time that we've done that, would the work product that you would have delivered to the treasurer's
Yes.
office, does it reflect accurately what the tax roll ought to have been for these properties in question?
It will tell you what, like, parcel A is now parcel B, parcel C is now parcel D.
Okay, and it will say which assessments apply to those parcels?
Yes.
Okay, and have we reviewed these ones in question that we're talking about tonight, and what you delivered for those parcels, was
Yes.
it accurate, what you delivered?
My system, yes.
Okay. And then what does that delivery and transfer look like? So are you operating within BSNA as well?
I am in the assessing program.
Okay, so we're just in a different module within the same
Yes.
suite?
And then that has to be imported into text.
Okay, and so that physical process, do you do an export and it generates some artifact that then gets imported, or it's all
No,
within the?
it's all interconnected.
Okay.
The treasurer just has to import it.
Okay, and so then the next question, I guess logically, it would go to the treasurer's office at this point. So then you've received this payload and you've imported it, and that's kind of where your responsibility stops? Like, can you give me some more
No,
details
so
around that?
with these changes, there's nothing to import, it's automatic. Same with a name change. If somebody says, hey, I got married and my last name changed, the assessing department can change it and it automatically updates in tax.
Okay. So your position remains then, for sure, that we got it right there, we enacted the correct process, and BSNA failed. But they're not making that statement on their own?
No.
We haven't had that conversation directly with them yet.
Okay.
So
So I-
identifying the problem
Yes.
and getting this resolution rolling was paramount. I think what you're asking is secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the both and here.
I mean,
We-
I agree that we need to find a fix, but we can't start experimenting with the fix until I have a clean database set up.
Right, nobody's talking about experiments or anything. Just trying to understand how we came to be into this situation and what our next steps ought to be. We have to have a meeting with our friends at BSNA. I will volunteer my time to come and assist you guys in that conversation if you think that would be beneficial.
But did you not say that we requested a virtual
Well,
meeting?
if
and
we
they
tell them we're
refused?
bringing our attorney, they will not meet with us.
That's
So we will
exactly
not
what
bring our
happened.
attorney.
That's correct.
And if we do,
Because
he will
if-
sit quietly in the back of the room.
We provided the list of people that would be coming from the township side, and it was a manager, and then when the manager saw the attorney's
Porter.
list, she's like, I have to get permission from my supervisor.
They won't meet you
Okay.
without their own
Yeah.
or their own attorney or representation, or they just won't meet with you at all.
Zach, I think I do have a solution to the problem,
Okay.
but I'd have to get further with BSNA to move it to a different area.
Okay. Anything, if you need some assistance with those conversations,
Sure.
I'm happy to assist. We have to nail this down. I'm okay with you guys doing what you laid out here to correct this now, but we have to have a root cause analysis report back to this board that describes definitively what occurred and how it's fixed before the next set of tax bills go out. Winter tax bills particularly. That's my opinion. That's how serious this issue is.
Don't disagree.
Because if we're in this position today, right now, and we only know it because we got a little phone call from somebody honest in the community, like, we could have, $100,000 this year, $100,000, like, no, this is unacceptable. So root cause analysis, I will help with any conversations with the software vendor. Let's move forward. But this is a little more important than a hand wave, and we'll get it corrected.
Do not disagree.
I don't think anyone was doing a hand wave
No, not at all.
at all. I think that the three people sitting right here know exactly how serious this is, and we already had a meeting about how it would be presented to the board. So, no
The
one
way
is
the
up
memo
that-
reads is, we think it's BSNA's fault. They didn't say so, but we think so. That's a very strange way to write a memo about a problem that you're bringing
I
to our
disagree,
attention.
that's not how it was written. If that's how you're reading it, that's fine, it wasn't written that way. There is an established problem with BSNA when it pulls one of two parcels, no, not parcels, flags, from the same section and only pulls one of them. So it is a BSNA issue, and I don't take it lightly.
Okay, I mean, I think you guys are taking it a little personally here, but.
You made it
the-
personal.
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to tell you right now, though, that,
No, I'm trying to tell you, you're not the only one who thinks this is important.
oh, good. I'm glad we're all on the same page then.
Right. That's an assumption you could have made.
Yeah, I didn't think this issue was going to be done just with this. I think we just need to bring resolution to what we know and then tackle the bigger problem of BSNA. But I didn't want this to drag along any longer than, I mean, once we knew it was happening, Claire started doing the research on the parcels. I talked to the assessor, got the background information as far as what's happening on her end, then we, you know, I mean, information collected.
Have we checked 23 and 24 or 22 for these kinds of issues? Not that we could go back to collect them, but my point being about this being a serious issue is that if I had encountered this in my day-to-day work, my first thought was, oh shit, did this happen last year or the year before or the year before? Because BSNA is kind of playing a game with me where they're not really telling me it's their fault, but I know it's their, like, so that's why it feels like a little bit of a hand wave to me.
Does anyone else have any questions for the assessor? She's got to go back and run the board of a review, which is happening right now. All right, thank you, Christine.
Appreciate it.
Well, I think, I appreciate, well, I don't think this. I feel that Zach's questions make sense, that we should follow through with those. But I also believe that what the treasurer has done and other folks who talked about it have brought it to a point where, okay, we're this far, you're up, everybody knows what's going on this far, and then we're going to continue our efforts after this. We're not just stopping. But just floating in the back of my mind, okay, we found this in the case of splits, and do we know that the other stuff, anything else is wrong with BSNA that they're doing? I mean, maybe my tax bill is totally wrong, that they're charging, someone's charging me the wrong rate. It seems like, you know, BSNA has got a lot of problems, and I'm not, you know, I don't know, is that the best? I mean, I know transitioning to something else, if there is something else, would be a problem, but it just brings up concerns about, well, maybe other stuff they're doing isn't quite as good as we think it is.
Yeah, which is why part of the resolve is to continue to go through these one at a time every year until I'm convinced or I'm satisfied or whoever precedes me is satisfied that that's not necessary anymore. It is a lot of work. It took me probably 27 hours just to go through the parcels.
You should never do that.
Well, I had
Under any
to,
circumstances.
but I had to in this circumstance.
All right. There's no
And
way
I'm not- I'm
that's
in-
an acceptable way to run the township's tax roll. The amount of error possibilities there is endless. We pay for software that's supposed to do this.
So, I believe it was you, Claire, asked for BSNA to produce a certain type of report that would weed out of all the,
Yeah.
whatever, 9,000 parcels. And then when we were on a meeting about this issue, a quick spot check, and it fixed some of them or identified some of them, but then we found 2 or 3 inconsistencies right away, so the report was no good.
Okay.
And I will happily invite you into a conversation because depending on who you get on the phone, it depends on the answer you get, right? So somebody
yeah, I
that's
get
newer
that.
tells you, we've never done that, I don't know what you're talking about, where I know it's been done because when I checked it manually 2.5 years ago, there was no issues. I think there was 2 veterans again.
Sure.
And so it has been doing it, and how are you pulling half without the other half and tell me it's never done it? Like,
I can appreciate the back and forth with your vendor and the confusion of having different support folks helping you with your case. That is a real problem that exists. But we have to keep pressing. Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, once that tax roll is, the 2025 roll
Okay.
is sent to the county and I can import the 26 summer and winter, that's when we can kind of have Christine get a hold of them and see if putting it somewhere else takes care of the issue. Because those are not committed tax bills at that time.
Yeah. Is BSNA able to support us in setting up like a a sandbox environment for the tax roll?
I
don't
don't
know.
even know what that
That's a
is.
good idea.
Okay.
Like a test
Like a
environment.
test environment,
Oh.
yeah.
I've never heard that from them, but that doesn't mean.
So
that
you
they
can
don't have
create your own backup, so I could have like a 2026 database
Okay.
that's working, and then I could have a 2026 test.
Yeah.
And
This-
work within the 10, and they would allow that
Okay.
right on the
Yeah, this would be
platform.
something for a conversation with them, just for future, so we can do some
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good
experimentation on
idea.
our
Yeah.
side. And okay, sorry, I didn't mean to
No.
go down a rabbit hole there. Thank you for
No,
the update.
no, I wanted to discuss it at length and thoroughly, so I appreciate that. I got the root cause analysis, it'll come back to the board. I mean, given how fast we can communicate with BSNA, will in some ways determine that, but we'll get the ball in motion and keep you in the loop on that.
And please keep in mind, I have to go through settlement and everything as well, so I'm kind of, so it might be a month or so.
You're fine.
Are there any other questions on this matter from the board members? Okay, I guess I don't see a motion on your memo. Do we need official action from the board on this? Just take corrective action.
Can I ask you a question, Jim? Just because I'm curious. So in this situation, to correct the bills, right, to rebill, they have to get the Board of Review to sign off on that
Correct.
activity, right? But does the law require them to go to the Board of Review to do this? This is just a genuinely curious thing, because if somebody were to make an honest mistake like this, can they just let it go, or are they so?
In my opinion, you can't let it go. I determined discussing it because of the significance of the amount with the clerk that it had to be corrected.
Okay.
And I believe it does have to go to the Board of Review.
Perfect, thank you. I was just curious.
All right, it is 6:56. Why don't we take a 10-minute break, and we will continue our meeting at 7:05. Is 10 minutes long enough for everybody? Okay.
Oh, that's my phone. How's that bad weather going on? She used to have it. Yeah. And she just left it. Go on. No.
Thumbs up. All right, it's 7:05, and I'm going to call this meeting back to order, and we are on item 11, which is a first reading regarding text amendments to Hawkers, Peddlers, and Solicitors Ordinance. Attorney Porter, do you want to give us the background on this one?
Sure, this basically comes to you at the request of your community policing officer. I wish I didn't have to report to the board that we have what they describe as a very serious problem in our community. Young people leaving school and going to, let's say, Myers, and walking in, taking a box of candy bars and running out with it, and then going over to, let's say, Lowe's and standing out in front of Lowe's and saying, hey, I'm selling these for my basketball team. Apparently, according to the report I got from the officer, they can clear about 80 to 90 bucks on a box of candy bars. And the problem with the situation was that if they stop them, you have to have probable cause to actually ask for a name or an address or a parent. You have to have probable cause, and you have to have a probable cause that there's been a violation of a ordinance or a state law. And in this case, they weren't necessarily violating anything. So I went back to our Hawker Peddlers ordinance rather than draft something from scratch, and we've modified a couple sections of the ordinance to basically focus on people soliciting within the township or in front of a commercial business. And there's two options. If you're a for-profit company, you're supposed to get a license, and I've done that with for years. Helped with issuing license to peddlers or people that are going around the community. The other option is if you're a charitable religious organization, a school, you have to register. So what that will allow our officers to do is when they approach these use to say, do you have a license? No. Is your organization registered? No. You are in violation of a local ordinance. And they will then proceed to ask for identification, hold the youth until their parents show up. If you looked at this real closely, we also added aiding and abetting. I think the word appalled would came to mind to find out that some parents are actually participating in this and driving these students from one store. They go in and go into, like Target, and Target will call and say, the candy boys are here, and then by the time they get over there, then they're over in front of Myers selling them. But our officers have actually seen them being driven to the site by their parents. So the idea here is to not necessarily try to create an uncomfortable environment. We will accommodate and try to encourage the stores to notify any legitimate organization. Like, we don't want to impinge on the Girl Scouts or Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We will try to tell the stores when somebody approaches them, please register with the township. You're a recognized charity. And if they're some kind of commercial operation, then they would have to get a license. The intent here is to basically create a situation where the officers can try to put a stop to this. This comes from your community policing officer, and it comes from the officer because the stores are saying, please, for the love of God and all that's holy, will you put a stop to this? It's terrible. They're losing a lot, and the stores often don't have people that can run or keep up with a 15 or 16-year-old. So as far as the stores are trying to do their part, but they're often a little older and a little slower and can't stop it. So that's the request tonight, is to amend these two sections of the Hawkers Peddlers Ordinance and move it for second reading.
So I have something to say. When I read this, I thought, okay, I had an experience with this several years ago. I mean, maybe even 10 years ago. My children were young. And I remember this young boy coming to the house. It was dark out, selling a candy bar for, I don't know, $2 or whatever. And, I'm like, hey, sure, here's a couple bucks. I don't, if you bought a candy bar for $1 and you're selling it for $2, going door to door, okay, whatever. But there was a car parked at the bottom of the driveway that was clearly waiting for this kid. And then it came, and I can't remember the specifics because it was so long ago, but then there was something about he wanted a glass of water, then he wanted to use my phone, and it just got very strange very quickly, and of course, the red flags were there. And that's when I started asking for identification. I went into detective mode. Okay, and I'm like, who are you? What is going on? Like, let's talk about this. And and I can't remember the outcome. I did follow up on it the next day and at the police department, but it was a very strange situation, and I had concerns. I mean, something weird is going on here. Is the house being cased? I didn't know, but it was very disconcerting. So I didn't know this was still a thing.
Yeah, and they said it's
Going
gotten, apparently the first young person that did it shared it with their friends, who shared it with their friends, who shared it with their friends, and now it's become sort of a serious problem.
Yeah, I mean, particularly, it sounds like they're doing this outside commercial businesses, but in my situation, it was door to door at
Right.
night.
This would also
It was
address that
strange.
as well, but.
Hey,
So-
Jim, did community policing officer make any comments about encouraging the loss prevention organizations to communicate with one another here in town?
Oh,
To share these photos? Because they
Yes.
could absolutely kick these kids off their private property
they
away from
could,
the front
but
doors.
they literally, to answer your question, yes, our community policing officer, they know who a certain number of these kids are.
Sure.
The businesses are cooperating with each other to the point that
Now
they
the
will
police need
call
a
and
reason
say
to.
the candy boys are here.
Got it.
The problem is, they will come in on a dead run.
Yes, yeah, it's a boost, yeah.
And they, and they know exactly where they're headed, and so trying to, stop them from actually leaving the store is, they've said is really, really difficult. But no,
Yeah,
they have.
most of the LPOs are not gonna stop them on these quick smash
Well,
grabs.
no,
if you
and,
will, for
and
a
they
couple
can't
boxes of
physically
candy.
stop
No.
them, but they are getting, they can identify quite a few of these young
Okay.
people.
Okay.
But the officers then, when they approach them,
Now they have a tool
they don't
to-
have any probable cause
Right.
to stop them, detain them temporarily and find out, who are you, where are your parents? This
Yeah.
has got to stop.
Yep, understood. Thank you very much.
So I asked you before the meeting, so I know the answer, but I just want to make sure it's clear for the record. Religious organizations that go door to door would not necessarily need to register every member of their organization if they went door to door. If they, I'm not saying that they asked for donation, but if they accepted donation, would they have to have a license, registration, or permit to do that?
If they're going door to door with the purpose of soliciting some type, they should be registered. If they're going door to door because they're proselytizing, they're witnessing, they're sharing their information, no, they would not need any kind of registration or licensing for that. If somebody then gave them a donation, again, I do not believe that would be a violation because their initial purpose there is not to solicit or seek any kind of donation.
And then if there was, and I don't allow my kids to do this, but if there was a school doing a fundraiser, a legitimate school doing a fundraiser, and the students chose to go door to door, would they be required to get a license? I know we wouldn't enforce it
No.
unless there was a complaint, but would they have to?
They
get
would be a
registered?
nonprofit, they would not have to get a license. We would recommend that the school notify the clerk's office so that if somebody calls, part of this purpose is, if somebody calls, just like the situation that was discussed here, somebody could call their clerk and say, does, I don't know, let's say it's Heritage Christian that's doing it. Do they have are they registered to go door to door to sell candy bars? And they would say, yes, they notified us they would be out soliciting donations. And then we know who's out there, and we can reassure the public of what's happening and why.
Okay.
And again, the intent here is to not impede any legitimate charity that's seeking some kind of assistance, or school, or a religious organization.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had no unintended consequences.
We will do our best, and I trust our community policing officer. I think that knowing that and reading through this, he not only read through it, but, everybody's title changes at the
Right.
sheriff's office.
Right.
I know it's not-
Deputy Sergeant Logan Bishop.
Right, that's, yeah.
Officer Bishop.
Okay, I was thinking Grand Poobah was not appropriate, but I know it was some, they've reviewed it at that level, and they're happy with the ordinance in the form that it's in to achieve the goal they want to achieve, which is just trying to slow this down and put a stop to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the attorney on this item? Okay.
No, I didn't know this was still going on. I think this is not meant to impede anyone else. It just gives us a necessary tool to be able to address it, or our CPO to be able to address it, and hopefully, as the word goes out amongst the candy kids, or whatever they're called, not to be pulling this in Oshtemo Township, because their cop is going to call you out. So I'm in support of this, and if you're ready, I would make a motion.
Before we take action on this, is there anyone here wishing to make public comment on item 11? Sure.
This guy working tonight?
I think the mic works.
And while I'm doing this, to answer your question on when the millage issue was pointed out, that would have been June 26th of 2025 at 2:40 PM, and that was a phone call with Assessor Bedell, if you're curious where that came from. Our family will be getting a bill. Thank you. That was pointed out in honesty. That one right here. There, better. The only reason I have a slide up is because the current agenda did not have red line on it. Again, my name is Katie Schneider. Tonight I'm speaking as a parent and as someone who volunteers and helps out with many youth organizations, especially with fundraising over the year. I give a lot of credit to every parent out there supporting youth organizations. A couple of you have pointed out some questions on this, but I think the real red line will show a lot more. I want to focus on the specific language change in this ordinance and what it actually does. It says it's to help police address the juveniles reselling unlawful goods outside commercial businesses. We pointed out there are some tools there for police already, and that the hope and the intent is that this will help. But what concerns me is the exact sentence that is being removed from the ordinance. And if you look towards the bottom, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the ordinance, as it has stood for years, has required a list of names of all persons soliciting on behalf of an organization. That stood for years, that's understandable. But with that, it had that except the requirement of license and/or registration shall not apply to solicitations by children under the age of 18 on behalf of a school, charitable or religious organization. Once that sentence is removed, children are no longer exempt from registration systems. And the ordinance requires nonprofit organizations to file a list of names to all persons soliciting on their behalf. Again, I give a lot of credit to police. I understand what we're trying to solve here. I understand the intent behind it. But I also know that all persons soliciting would now include minors. That would include a church youth group that's out fundraising, school group out selling something, or Girl Scouts out selling cookies. When you read through this, it says once a year, that list must be provided. One of my degrees is in computer information systems. I have over 20 years of experience in data storage and web technology fields. That leaves me with questions about the stored information about all of these children. Who is going to store these lists of minors and the organizations they take part in? Which department will maintain them? Are they stored in data centers? Are they stored in the cloud? Are they pieces of paper kept in a drawer? What security will be around these records? Who has access to them? Because it sounds like they will need to be readily available 24 hours a day for those out in the field, whether enforcing ordinances or for our police officers. Are those records, because they've been submitted to the township, now public records? Are they subject to the Freedom of Information Act? All of those lists of juveniles and minors and children? Our township has said in court many times that ordinances are enforced exactly how they are written. If that is the standard, the language matters here, not the intent, not the spirit. Writing ordinances to take easier aim at children is a lot to swallow. I understand the intent. I understand that we're trying to help here. But expanding an ordinance in a way that requires organizations to submit lists of minors raises privacy and policy concerns that should be carefully considered before moving forward. Thank you.
That was one of the specific sections that we did have to remove from the ordinance, because without that removal, it would have been unenforceable. So if, with that language in there, you could not have stopped any juvenile. So,
Although the sentence read that it was the juvenile on behalf of a school charitable organization or whatever. We're having a problem with kids who are,
You gotta talk in your microphone, Dusty.
we're having a problem with the kids who are going car to car or whatever in these parking lots. They're not doing it on behalf of a charitable organization.
correct.
So even with the
So,
wording, if it had stayed the same, it would still be enforceable.
Well, I just didn't want there to be any confusion with regard to a exemption for somebody under the age of 18. So we took that language out. Basically, this would require, yes, if somebody was doing it on behalf of a school, they would give you that information and tell you basically who's going to be out soliciting. I don't know that most of the local charities are going to have a problem. This information is strictly, will be with the clerk and would be available to the ordinance enforcement officer. So, but with that language in there, I didn't feel as if we could do anything.
So how would we deny that FOIA if somebody were to FOIA that list?
If somebody, let's say they asked for a list of, part of it would depend upon what the list had. Let's say the Girl Scouts wanted to solicit out in front of Menards, so they register with you. Girl Scouts of Southwest Michigan, Chapter 453, and they would have maybe the list of the, I don't know whether you call them den mothers or, and then maybe a list of the kids. If somebody wanted to solicit that information, I believe what we would do is redact anything that would be considered personal information. And so I would say, if I were to look at it, I would delete the specific references to any minors. I would delete any reference to any phone numbers. I would delete any references to any addresses if somebody did solicit that information through a FOIA.
But wouldn't the FOIA be who are licensed hawkers and peddlers?
Yeah, that would be something you'd provide, yeah. It's Girl Scouts of Southwest Michigan, and if they
But
ask,
the individuals, you wouldn't identify
I
in
wouldn't
a
release the
FOIA.
individuals, because I think that's personal information.
Yeah, okay.
That we are allowed under the Freedom of Information Act
To
to
redact
redact
PII.
or to not provide personal information.
Correct.
So as
Okay.
far as the specific individuals, we wouldn't provide that information.
Understood.
So I'm just asking about the feasibility. So again, I'm using my kids as an example. They go to a private school. As a member of a private school, they don't necessarily know where the kids are going to do something. And if there was a fundraiser, how would a school who's not in our community know to alert our community that they would do that? So I'm just questioning the feasibility if that would be even feasible, or even the case that was just mentioned, the Girl Scouts, would they have to list every single Girl Scout that could possibly, even if their parents say, no, I'm going to give a donation, I don't want you going door to door, would they have to list every possible person who would potentially be selling Girl Scout cookies? So and then,
I don't know that, again, everything's written to try to take in the broadest violators, if you will. I think if you said the Girl Scouts from Southwest Michigan Troop 453, if the clerk was satisfied with that and we knew they were out, and somebody said, hey, there's somebody from the Girl Scouts here, we would know that. As far as enforcement, typically what's going to happen is you enforce basically when there are complaints. You enforce when there's problems. If the Girl Scouts are, again, our community policing officer said he would help facilitate this, notify the businesses that are having, they know they have a problem. So they know they have these candy kids. So they're going to be told to notify the managers that if you have anybody soliciting in front of your store that you want to approve, please register with the township clerk. She could get a name of the den mothers and, the Girl Scout list. And
so and I'm just going through hypotheticals. So let's say I were in front of Walmart and I'm a child and I'm selling. I could just say I'm selling on behalf of my church. It would take considerable amount of time to see if that church was registered or if those individuals were registered. Would the police officer be waiting that whole time? I'm just running different scenarios through my head, because if it was Bobby B, a 14-year-old kid selling for this group, what would the process look like? Would the police officer or the store contact the township?
I can answer this.
Yeah, I'm just going through scenarios.
So it really wouldn't be necessary for them to contact the township when they come across those who are soliciting, right? Because I give them a copy of the registration.
Okay.
That's whenever anybody applies for the permit, I do all the paperwork. One set of paperwork goes to the ordinance enforcement officer. I keep one set, and one set goes to the sheriff's department.
Treasurer, did you have? I did. I was wondering if that was possible to do with a school as well. A couple of things. One, I don't know that a school will release a list of minors to anybody. But two, is it possible we could do something like Kalamazoo Central Wrestling and then issue it to the school and have the school give the students a copy of that so that it's not naming a minor? I guess that's
no, I think that is a valid consideration.
Yeah.
And we can take a closer look at the language as far as, we certainly don't want minors being, long-term list of minors being kept, but I think.
No.
Asking a school to provide a list of all the students is also kind of a burden. It just
Yeah,
seems
you
like
could say-
if
yeah,
X
you could say
school
that
is going to be distributing,
wrestlers-
here's the contact person if any of our people are
Yeah, like
misbehaving.
Central Wrestlers or Norix Softball, or just, you want to list the school and the sport, fine. And that, I think, eliminates the collection of minors' names. The issue that may be held with just giving of those names on a school aspect, but then their instructions as students would be, you need to carry this with you.
And the FOIA thing was another concern, is and thank God, I don't think this is a problem in our community, but it is in others. If there are religious minority groups, I don't want something to be identifiable that could identify members of that group that may already be in a disadvantage, or in case there was any type of political issues, I don't want a group being targeted, their membership being accessible to the public. So you at least made me feel better that you would be able to block that out.
Well, we can do that right now. We could modify that final sentence to say that such an organization shall register with the township clerk annually, file with the township clerk or ordinance enforcement officer the name of the person in charge of soliciting on behalf of the organization. At least you know the person in charge and you know the organization.
Does that diminish the probable cause
No, I
approach
don't
problem?
believe so, because again, the same thing, Dusty would provide them with a copy, then every kid that's out soliciting could get a copy of the registration.
Yeah.
And it would
And even
say,
then, even if they didn't have a copy and they just say, I'm
I'm
with
with
Norwich
girls."
softball,
Yeah.
they'll know they've got the list.
That's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
what I anticipate happening is, our police officers, you know, they didn't just fall off a turnip truck. What they will be doing is, when they approach somebody who clearly isn't with a valid organization, clearly does not have any kind of licensing, they're going to know pretty quick that basically this person is not out there with any kind of authorization. That will be the person that they will actually hang on to for a little while to find out what's going on. But I appreciate the clarification.
So, Jim, do you want to make that change? And
Yeah,
why
we
don't we
can-
bring it back for first reading next time, and we'll include the red line that time?
Well,
We can make the change
you
and
can make the
still
change
accept
now and then
first
bring it back
reading.
for second reading.
Okay.
The way the last
Did you
sentence
wanna
would read right
reread
now
that
would be,
then?
however, such an organization shall register with the township clerk annually and file with the township clerk or ordinance enforcement officer the name of the person in charge of soliciting on behalf of the organization. So you basically, you know, what organization, you know, who's in charge. Mrs. Smith from eighth
Runs.
grade
Yeah.
English class.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve the first reading of the text amendments to hawkers, peddlers, and solicitors, section 122.001, definitions and sections 122.003, license, and set second reading for March 24th, 2026, with the additional statement read by Attorney Porter.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. I do believe this is a roll call vote, clerk?
It's
No?
just a regular.
No, just motion.
Just a regular motion. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6 yeas with 1 nay. Next, we have item 12, which is a second reading regarding a moratorium on commercial data centers ordinance. I open this up for any board, is there any board questions on this item?
Oh, pretty clear.
Okay. Before we take action, I'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone here wishing to make public comment regarding item 12? Seeing no public comment, I'll close the public comment. Ready for a motion?
I make a motion to accept the moratorium on commercial data centers.
Second.
A motion by Clerk Farmer, a second by Trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will, the media and communications manager, Rich and I had a conversation. Jody was on vacation last week, but we are going to put out on the website what is the intended plan for addressing battery energy storage, and after we get that up and rolling, we will tackle doing the same thing regarding the commercial data center ordinances, so that people can see, it'll be a draft because it might change, but people can see the progression of how these are moving through the various processes. Next, we have item 13, which is discussion and consideration regarding the local road prevention maintenance PAR project. Ms. Horner, do you want to talk to the board about what your items in the packet are, please?
Sure. Hopefully the memo kind of walks through some of the history and the funding that we use for preventative maintenance on the local road system. There was a map included of the projects selected for this year, and then the local road contract with the staff comments. When we reviewed it, it is a little different than previous years. They did already send over the copy that just refers to the township, not Brady Township, that I requested, so that's item 8D. And I think the rest of it is just for the public and the board to know that we do review these annually, and put a lot of thought behind the implementation of how we use our funding and making sure that we can achieve as many of the township goals as possible. So the neighborhood road funds aren't available yet this year, but this was done with those in mind. So mostly for feedback, or mostly just feedback for the road commission. One thing I want to highlight, kind of to your comment earlier, trustee Sikora, about the different types of fixes and how they're holding up and whatnot. We originally got this list and met with the road commission to talk through, each township is different and how much funding they have, whether they leverage a countywide SAD, a road millage, everybody's unique, and so they do what is best for them. And one of the projects that was recommended, it was the rubber chip seal trial on one of the roads that's a 4. And so by the time we spend $150,000 on something, and the real fix needs to be just repaving it or resurfacing it so that we don't, we aren't able to leverage all those funds to their fullest capacity. We wanted to talk through making sure that we were doing the right fix. And some townships are in a situation where they're worried about turning their roads over to gravel because they don't have enough funding. So we're in that position because we've made those investments continuously. So we do, as staff, look for those opportunities and try to make sure that we are in this mix of fixes, or the box of the different treatments we can pull from, that we are selecting the right one that fits our community. So we worked through that with them, but I just wanted to highlight that that's some of the opportunities we have, and some of the work we're trying to do is to make sure it's the right fit. The other thing is that there's a tiny budget amendment with this. Again, it's just kind of how the projects all fall together and the pricing for the year, but we rather get all these projects done in the 2026 list than take one out. So we are requesting that budget amendment. It has been my experience in the past 5 years that we come well under budget for the total estimates. So even with that budget amendment, I'm confident we will stay under the $730-ish thousand. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight is that we are coordinating with our sewer expansion projects. So for example, there's one of the projects on the map is the Cross Bend Court in the rest of Fairgrove. So outside of where we did sewer in 2025, there's a section that we want to be kind of at the same point in its life cycle, and not have the neighborhood split. So we're gonna mill and overlay that this year. It's basically everything kind of on the southwest corner, if you will, of Quail Run, and then it will all be on the same cycle for treatment. So we are trying to do some of that work with the road commission. So if there's any other questions.
Chip seal trial, what are they doing there, do you know?
I know maybe a little bit. It's a rubber chip seal. Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah? Okay.
they're working with Eagle to do some, grinding down tires that
Yeah.
get turned in, and seeing if that can be some of the aggregate that's used. I don't think it completely replaces the chips with the rubber, but it's kind of a hybrid, just to
Okay.
see if they can get some extended use out of it. There is grant funding available for it, so I think in our case, we're getting 30% of that project covered with this grant
Oh, that's
funding.
that $5,000 from
Yeah,
Eagles Farm? Okay.
because the whole project's like 17,000.
Yeah, got it.
So, yep, I know they've been trying that for a few years, and then use the data and try to monitor how it's holding up, and
I can't wait for the reviews, trustee Chapman.
I had nothing to do with this. I had
Well, I
nothing
used to
do
live
with
on Penny Lane, that's why it jumped out to me, so it's like, oh, what are they doing over there?
Yeah, and that, we have a policy at the township that we won't do any road preventative maintenance for a road that's planned to have sewer or water expansion. And so Penny Lane is one of those. But we are still trying to use one of the tools again to extend the life, since we're not sure when that project will happen. So they are getting the rubber chip seal trial.
Cool. Thanks for that update. This looks great.
Any other questions for Ms. Horner? Okay, before we take board consideration on this item, is there anyone here wishing to make public comment on item number 13?
Chips.
Okay.
Okay, well, if they start using chips, I want the credit for that. Bounce down the road, trustee Chapman.
You better go
I got my eye
get
on
get that, what is it called when you register your idea?
My
Your,
patent.
Yeah, you're patenting on that right now. Okay, seeing a comment from our Commissioner Stahauer, closed public comment. Is there any further board deliberation on this item?
Just one. With the talk in Lansing about the road funding, the marijuana tax, and possibly repealing that, if that were repealed, would that have significant impact on our projections, our ability to perform all of these?
Not this year, because again, that revenue is not being recognized this year. So in future years, it could. But I think that was the intent with the road commission, is make sure we have the funding before we offer it, so we can set those expectations. But yeah, it's not only that it's being, I think it's called an injunction, Jim, that was filed, but it was also the timing. They didn't quite have to think through the budgets of when one fiscal year ends and one starts. So there would have been a delay anyway if that didn't happen. So I think in general, the road commission waited a year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you could expect by some miracle, if this neighborhood road funding shows up earlier, that Public Works would come forward with more projects to utilize the neighborhood road funding, so.
The items that are listed as unmet, are they, obviously, you go through 2030, and it's just, these are other things, are they in any priority on the list that, where they're listed here? I think this might be the road commission's list, or.
Yeah, it's their list.
just
It's
means we
basically
won a lotto
using,
Or something.
yeah, I think it's, basically saying if we spend this much for a few years, these are all of our roads in their database, basically. So after we get out 5 years, they call it unmet needs, although we would continuously have the road funding and keep working through the projects. But there's also, different administrations put out different types of road funding, so those can change, and that's why we want them on a list, to have the perspective of everything that's out there. It kind of helps those conversations in Lansing when we say this is how much road funding we need in the future. So I think it's kind of both those things, that it helps them have a full list of all of our roads and all of our projects, and it helps that conversation about how much money is needed. I would like to start refining our CIP a little bit more a few years out. Some of these projects, again, will get done with the sewer projects or other development projects. And so I know we probably, I don't know if this is a way to take credit, but probably have the most challenging CIP that the road commission does because of our other infrastructure projects going on and the amount of development we have going on. So I think we can, as we get some of those projects done, we can start to make this list much more accurate. And some of the unmet needs might bump up a little bit. And we'll get on a little bit more of a routine basis, routine of once our roads are all paved, because a lot of them are in failed condition. If you look at the Pazer map, they're like a 1. So once we can get them all into the fair and good, then it'll be more just routine maintenance.
So I guess what I was getting at is, so that it's just a list of other roads, but they're not listed as these should be higher priority, and if you get money, you should consider these. So example, I was talking about KL Avenue, and I see it's KL Avenue 2nd to 4th Street, exactly the where I was talking about, that was just done, it says $54,000, but it's under unmet. So that's just like sometime in the future when it's.
It's based on
So
Paiser
you
rating.
kind of get an idea of how much you
So,
might need?
again, this is a database of all of our roads, and then as a road gets done, so if it got a chip seal 2 years ago, it moves to the bottom of the list because the Paiser rating's high. So if there was a column for Paiser rating, I would assume that the unmet needs are the ones that are in a higher Paiser rating are considered good or fair condition.
That's what I was wondering, are they listed in any order? like
Yeah.
By Paiser rating or something?
We did ask if they could add that as a column.
Okay, thank you, sorry to. it
No,
just
that's okay.
Stuck right out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what are all these, that they're needed to be done now, and we don't have any money, or?
Think
in the
wish list?
future, you know, Yeah, a wish list. you
And
know,
again,
I
it
was like,
helps,
wait a minute, there's mine again.
it's kind of like an illustrative CIP too, when we apply for grants, we need our projects to be listed. So I think that's some of the thought behind it too. I am curious as we get projects done, where we rank, I don't know if everybody's seen the bar chart of all the townships' average Paiser ratings, but I'm trying to get us up there, so that's why I want the Paiser ratings, so we can set up the formulas and figure out where we're at for our overall averages. But yeah, that's my understanding, is it's just kind of a rolling list, so once a project gets done, it goes down.
Well, and it's good that if you're using the Paiser rating, which I think that's a great idea, because as I can remember years ago, we had a township board committee that drove around the township and looked at roads, and came up with that list, and it wasn't always objective, I would say. So I'm glad that there is a system using like Paiser ratings that help us make those decisions. Are you ready for motion? I don't know where we were at.
Is there any other discussion on this item? Yeah, I'm ready.
Unfortunately, I got off of that page because I was looking through all
I
this.
got you.
Okay.
I move to approve the 2026 local road
Oh, wait.
preventative maintenance projects.
With the budget amendment? There's a
Yes.
budget amendment.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Support.
sorry, I have a motion by trustee Ford, support by trustee Sikora.
Yep.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have a discussion and consideration regarding Act 185 bonds, a county and township contract. And Ms. Horner?
Yep, so as we mentioned before, we would be coming forth with this contract between the township and the Board of Public Works. I will say that on page 46, in the intro to the resolution, it says February 24th, because we had hoped to bring this to the last board meeting. So that should be reflective of March 10th, of the day it's going to be passed. But, so the resolution, if you read it, encompasses the contract, so both were included in the packet. I'll highlight that we have 6 attorneys that have looked at this. So it's been through the ringer. The things that, when I was reviewing it, stood out to me is that we are not, with any cost incurred related to this, to exceed $15 million. So that's construction, that's municipal finance advisors, that's our bond counsel. I'll also highlight that until the bonds are paid off, the county owns it, but they essentially lease it back to us so we can operate and maintain it. It talks about still having the right to levy the rates so that we can build the system and repay it. So those were the things that stood out to me. The principal payment, Claire, I did make a note of that date so we can put it all on our calendars of April 1st each year. And then the penalties if it's not paid on that date. So I can do my best to answer any questions about the contract, but again, it's been reviewed and this was provided by the county.
So a quick question, and I tried to read through it, and I didn't see it, and I don't know if it would be appropriate here, but what is the interest rate of repayment? Is that set, or is that floated on the bond market?
Right, so the next steps is that this, when it gets approved by our board, goes to the Board of Public Works. It goes to 2 readings at the county board, and then we can sell the bonds on the market, and that's when we would be getting the rate. the specific rate. We have them projected conservatively in our cash flows by our municipal finance advisors. I believe they're at like 4.5% or 4.55 because the county just closed on some bonds and they were just under that. So again, they're being a little conservative, but assuming that we'll get about the same rate from the open market. And then once those bids are put in for those bonds, then that will go back to the county board again for 2 more readings to approve the sale.
Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully I got that right, Jim.
Yep. Any other questions for the Public Works Director?
It's not a question, but when you mentioned that the date was wrong, this also says Eastern Standard Time, so you want, I assume you want daylight time now.
Or we could just eliminate.
Yes.
Take the S out, call it extraterrestrial.
Thank you. There's also, it says mayor. If anybody read word for word, there is a mayor in there instead of a supervisor, so I will get that changed.
Are you ready for a motion on this?
I'm going to take public comment
Okay.
first before. At this time, we'll offer public comment for item 14. If you have anything you wish to share, now would be the time on item 14. Seeing none, I'll close.
I was just telling you it's roll call.
Oh, yeah, thank you. This time I will close public comment and take a motion if we're ready.
I move to adopt a resolution approving contract with the County Board of Public Works and pledging full faith and credit of the township as presented.
Support?
A motion by trustee Ford, support by trustee Sikora. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call
Oh,
vote.
you got
Boy,
us. You got us.
is she just, yeah. Clerk, will you please call a roll?
I will. Trustee Chapman?
Yes.
Trustee Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Cole?
Yes.
Trustee Sikora?
Yes.
I vote yes. Treasurer Bushka?
Yes.
And Supervisor Bell?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Thank you, clerk. Next, we'll move to item 15, discussion and consideration, a budget amendment for Kale Avenue non-motorized path construction, MDOT segment. Ms. Horner, can you tell us how we got here?
Sure. Hopefully the memo kind of walked everybody through it. This has been a long construction project. It's been multiple years. If you're ready for KL Avenue to be reopened, it is coming in the next few months, so they are on schedule to open at the end of June. A lot of the work last year was the temporary bridge install, switching traffic, rebuilding either side of the, or the 2 bridges, I'll say, and now the remaining work is really on KL Avenue. And we set up a contract with MDOT to include the work related to our path segment under there with their contractor and their contract, so that we didn't have to remobilize, get additional permits, those kinds of things. So this is what we owe them. We paid a deposit in 2024, and this is the remaining balance due that they are requesting from us. I got the information from them. It took Zach a few people to track down, but it's in the memo. So there's the current construction cost. We do have to pay a proportional share of the construction engineering. That's the testing, the on-site inspector, and then shows the deposits or remaining balance. If any of the bid quantities, let's say they had, 250 tons of asphalt, and that's what all this amount includes, if they only use 210, we will get a credit back for what is actually placed in the field.
Is this the last remaining bit of work for this path?
No.
No, we have to get through phase 2.
This is under the bridge.
This is just the bridge piece?
Yeah.
Yes.
Doesn't go to the traffic.
And then we go,
Then we'll take it and go across the little wet landy area and up to the apartments, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Any questions for
Yeah.
Ms. Horner?
So, we haven't even started that part going west of the bridge, right? We're only focused under the bridge right now with this request?
correct.
Okay, then I won't even ask the question. Never mind, I don't have any questions. This is fine.
Okay. Any other questions for Public Works Director on this item? Okay, at this time, I will open item 15 up for public comment. If you have anything you wish to share regarding item 15, now would be the time to do that. Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. We can move into board deliberation or a motion if people are ready. Where to go?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment for KL Ave North non-motorized path construction MDOT segment for $50,000.
Second.
A motion by Clerk Farmer, a second by Trustee Ford. Any conversation on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Trustee Cole, did you vote?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, your microphone's not on.
No, I had it on.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry. Next, we'll move to discuss the maintenance budget item that we moved out of the consent agenda. Trustee Sikora.
Yes, thank you. I don't have any issue with replacing the
33-year-old furnace.
Exactly, exactly. What I want to understand is, we have had a 33-year-old furnace.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a plan of all the, infrastructure, whatever, the physical plans of when things, how old they are, when they're going to be coming up, what we should be watching for? And I'm wondering, is that something that the Buildings and Grounds and Cemetery Committee should be helping push or assemble or whatever?
Well, it is,
We're,
right, so yes, the maintenance director keeps track of those maintenance-type assets and how old they are. This one, so for example, a part of the plans for replacement are the HVAC units on top of this building this year. They haven't died yet, but they are getting to such a point. I didn't know we had a 33-year-old furnace either, so, I mean, I certainly can have the maintenance director come and share how he tracks that information, and then that gets fed into the CIP as part of budgeting.
Is that something that the building, cemeteries, and grounds, or whatever order those words are, should be monitoring as part of their role, getting, whether they're looking for how we can get a study or whatever might be needed, and then how does, trying to understand the building, cemeteries, and grounds committee, I'm almost wondering what their role is in the sense of, we had a meeting, we discussed getting some things done, including like the flagpole project and everything, and haven't heard anything about it since then. How do those things get moved? Does the committee need to meet more often just to make sure, are there any questions? Are we changing any priorities or whatever?
Yeah, and so I think maybe I didn't fully give you enough information. So I think that it would not be a bad idea for the maintenance director to bring that to the cemeteries maintenance, or cemeteries building and grounds committee, to take feedback, like for doing things different. Do we need an updated asset management plan? You betcha we do, and it's on my wish list for 2027. And I can provide you some updates on what's happening with the flagpole project and the sign project when we get into board updates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That was all I had, and if no one else had anything, I would make a motion to approve the budget amendment as provided.
Second, for the furnace.
at this time, before we move this motion, is there anybody in the public wishing to make comment on item
Whatever.
15B, I guess, or something, the moved item? Seeing no public comment, any discussion on the motion? We have a motion by trustee Sikora and support by trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, and topics for board discussion, I wanted to bring forward an idea for the meeting room upgrade. The IT director is working on some, which is budgeted, some meeting room upgrades. Of course, now where's my little note? here in the Township main meeting room. We budgeted $20,000 for the meeting room upgrades. And John, can you come tell us what those, I have my two little notes and not the information I need. What is planned for that $20,000?
So there's a lot of rewiring that's going to be redone in this room. We're getting another television so that when we are operating in the back, other people can see better on the screens. So that's actually, these carts are not cheap, so that's kind of an expensive thing. But we're not just doing this room. Our North Conference Room, we're doing a major upgrade in that as well, and that's part of that money. Doing dual screens and wireless connectivity instead of hauling wires around in the room. So it's just upgrading our meeting rooms to be more functional for the staff when they're meeting in them.
Thank you. I forgot, it is meeting room upgrades, not just this room. So, a while back while I was watching other community board meetings, you can see that there are boardrooms that have timers that the speaker can see on the podium and a timer that's at the dais that the dais can see. Right now, our public comments are timed by me on my iPhone, which I try to watch and then do. And this would make it, they'd know when 4 minutes was up, we'd know 4 minutes was up. So I asked John to look into that for me, and that system would also allow for turning the microphone off if necessary. The reason I wanted to discuss this before we did anything is that to add those features, we would need a budget amendment of about $1,500. But I wanted to see if people were interested in adding those features, because now, I mean, they're going to be working on it, so now would be the time to consider that. So I just wondered if you had questions, if you would entertain that as an addition or not interested.
I do like the idea of having that, just because I do feel that it's, to interrupt somebody just feels, I don't know, it would just be nicer to have somebody else, like the people that are speaking, be able to see the
Yeah.
counter. $1,500, I don't know, that's not just for that, right?
It's for the time. John, can you describe what that would include?
So the reason that it actually pushes us a little over is the Creston screens here that we use. We have to purchase another one of those, and those screens are $1,300 just for that item. The rest of it's just programming and wiring.
Again,
Yeah, I'd be in support of this. I think it's, makes it so that the timekeeper can pay attention. That's
Well-
a real problem, so like, not that it's a real problem that you've been demonstrating, but
Well,
I wouldn't want to take on that
it's kind of a
responsibility of trying to
pain,
listen
yeah.
and time somebody, so.
and what happens sometimes that it makes me uncomfortable is I forget, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be timing.
Right.
And somebody gets 6 minutes that was supposed to have 4. And so, and then it creates inequities because we don't have a solid system
Yeah.
Yep,
to do it. And, I mean, if you look at, many other community meetings have these features in their meeting room, that I watch anyway.
I do wonder about just using a free timer from the internet and posting it on on our displays in here, but instead of spending $1,500, but just a thought.
Well, the $1,500 isn't just for a timer though, right?
It was for timer and mic cutting, I
Screens
thought I
and,
heard.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
it ties into our system so that it can cut the mic off or
Right.
can manually turn the mic off if you want.
But the $1,500 does not include another cart and television.
So that's from the other.
That was, or did I just mix
Right.
two items?
Yes,
Okay, sorry, I thought they were, come together for some reason.
Yeah, personally, I spoke at the city ZBA meeting in December, and they have a little timer there out front, so you can watch the countdown and how much time and whether you need to talk faster or you have extra time. Of course, they also didn't have the correct time, but that's a different issue. And then it shuts off your mic when your time is up, which I assume could be done, or.
Right, that's what we're looking at doing. When you're 4 minutes up, the mic will turn off.
Yeah. Yeah,
But we can program it however
Yeah.
you guys want it programmed.
Yeah. I support it. It makes it transparent too, that it's not, as the supervisor said, it's not, oh, forgot to turn on the timer, or I got the timer on, or whatever. Then everybody knows and everybody sees. So I support it.
All right, well then, I will work with John and we'll work up that budget amendment and memo, and I'll just bring it back the next time. I think it would be valuable, and since he brought the estimates to me, I'm like, oh yeah. Or no, you included that in your estimate, so I didn't want him to spend any time on it if it wasn't something people were interested in. So thanks, John. Okay, next we are to item 17, and this is time for public comment regarding anything you wish to share with the board. Is there anyone here wishing to make public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, I will close public comment and we'll move to item 18, which is board member comments and committee updates. And we will let's start with Miss Trustee Cole.
We have police committee meeting tomorrow night, and I saw that the agenda came through, and I don't know who's responsible for posting the link, but they did post it differently, and I was actually able to open it. So thank you, Sherry, or whomever, because I know that has been a huge issue with me for some reason. I can't open those. It actually looks like a very interesting agenda, so I'm excited for our meeting tomorrow. Other than that, I've also had one eye on the radar, so it looks like about 10:30 p.m. is when we're going to get hit pretty hard with these storms. So just be aware of that. It looks like it's going to go on till at least 2 a.m. So there's that. And I also just wanted to point out, Trustee Sikora, I just wanted to compliment you because you are always doing things township-related that you volunteer for everything. You go to meetings that, the rest of us can't get to. And I do realize you are retired and you maybe have more time, but you could spend your time in retirement doing lots of other things. And it's admirable to me that you spend it investing so much of your time in the township. So thank you for that. And that is all I have.
Oh, that was very nice. Ditto. Trustee Ford.
Yeah, let's see. We have another police meeting tomorrow, don't we?
Yeah.
So there'll be another update on that. A little different. I was in this week to the office and visited with Greg Fountain and David Cobb and brought an electrician down. We were able to survey the campus, kind of take an inventory of power availability and trying to identify sites for level 2 EV charging. So we were able to inspect the main panel in the main office, the fire station, and both of our maintenance buildings out here. Just a real quick rundown of what we observed is we have more than enough power available to us in the fire station and in the main facility. We think at this time probably not a good idea to invest in charging infrastructure in our facilities to the western part of the property. We've got, I think, 100 amp service coming in to that really old cinder block building, and then 90 of those 100 amps are getting redirected to the other building over there, and they're both tapped out. So it would take a little bit more effort to make it work out there. Looking at the main building here, we would require a directional bore out to our parking lot. That will have some added costs. So ultimately, we ended up really focusing on over here at the fire station, and we think the rough budget number that was discussed was around $7,000. Could get us 4 charging stalls, if you will, level 2 chargers. all being able to park on that east side of the fire station. So township staff vehicles, fire vehicles, and then also one inside the bay over there. So that's starting to move along. The electrician and Greg are now connected. They will touch base, and I would expect Greg will probably bring something back to us to discuss.
Yep, David wrote up a nice report after that meeting. I don't know,
Okay.
did he share that with you?
Maybe. I have not been in my township emails since
I
I've
mean,
been
it was
back
really
here,
just
so.
a recap of what you shared. One other thing, fire chief was out while you guys were doing that, so we do need to loop in the chief. at some
I
point.
was texting with him shortly after
Okay.
our meeting, so
Okay, good.
he's aware. We even test fit the truck he wants.
I saw, actually, I watched you pull your truck
Greg
into.
asked me to. That was not.
I'm like, oh, they're checking to make sure it'll fit.
It's it's snug, but it'll fit, and so yeah, I think it's moving forward. It was nice to get that first step done. So now we can solicit other quotes if we want, and we've got some information. So that was positive. I
Don't have any updates regarding the situation with the MI vehicles, though. I'll have to find out what's going on.
On the government program for the vehicles. Yeah, I don't have any info on that. I am also slated to be in tomorrow to sit down with Public Works and discuss some of their maybe opportunities around efficiencies and workflows and AI tooling. So I'm hoping to be able to make that event tomorrow, and then I'd like to set one up with the clerk's office as well. So those are my updates. Yeah, hopefully.
All right, trustee Chapman?
Thank you. The planning commission is going to meet Thursday. There hasn't been another meeting before that that I haven't updated you on, but I do just want to send out thoughts and considerations to our neighboring community, though not a direct neighbor, after the tornado strike, and also encourage everybody to keep in their thoughts. It's easy to be distracted by gas prices, but we do have service members who are directly in harm's way, and you don't hear much about that on the television, but I know for myself there are people very close to me who are in considerable harm's way, and I think it's appropriate we keep them in their consideration. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Trustee Sikora?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Trustee Cole, for those kind words. I've always been someone who likes to be involved and get the, just my nature, and so anything I can help with, I try to do it. I think it's important for my community. I live here. I want to make sure that, I'm participating in it and make it a great place for everyone. Last week, I attended the Kalamazoo Regional Water and Wastewater Commission meeting. I serve as our alternate there. Today, I attended the Road Commission meeting virtually, and I noticed there was a timer on the screen that I was watching. Yes. So you did have, was that 1,500? No. Anyway. And next week, we'll have our monthly Friends of the Parks Board meeting, as well as the bi-monthly Parks Committee meeting. So I'll have more information. We have a lot of events scheduled already that are coming up. And some of them are on the Friends of the Parks Facebook page, but I'll have a more extensive list that I can share with everyone, all the way through an open house at the Drake Farmstead and the Drake House in September. Interested in the event planning and update that Supervisor Bell will hopefully be giving us for the flagpole project and for the July 4th celebration. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Trustee Sikora. Clerk Farmer?
Yeah. I mentioned at the last board meeting that we have a May election for precincts 3 through 9. We actually have a May election for precincts 2 through 9. We found out that Madawan has something on the ballot. Public accuracy for that election is April 9th. And then with transit, the CCTA and the KCTA, the Kalamazoo County Transit Authority and the Central County Transit Authority met yesterday, and we adopted a resolution declaring March 18th Transit Workers' Day, and there's some activities that they have planned for that. We also adopted a resolution for our 2026 millage levy of 1.05. We could levy up to 1.1, but For operations, we determined that we didn't need to levy the full millage. And then the KCTA millage is .3091 for 2026. And we have finished our interviews for the accountant position, and hopefully we'll be offering a position to a candidate at the end of this week. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Treasurer Bushka?
Yes, so tax season officially, the last payments were accepted on March 2nd. We are set up, I am set up to start county settlement on the 18th of the month. And that usually takes about a week beginning to end. It doesn't mean I'm there every day, all day for a week, just that's when information changes hands and make sure everything balances. We had our public media network meeting last week, and the biggest takeaway that would affect our township is the ADA digital accessibility compliance. I have dispersed that to IT, media and communications, and I believe you got a copy. If not, I'll get you one. But it discusses how each of our entities have to have additional ADA compliant items on posts on Facebook, YouTube, public media network itself, and anything on our web. So they're working through that. The county and the city have to be in compliance by April 24th. And then we have a year after that, but PMN's goal is on the 1st of 2027. For later information, there is some small discussion about passing on the costs. It will be a significant cost increase to public media at $1 a minute, which when I figured out the math, it's about $7,200 a year. If you figure a board meeting at 2 hours twice a month, or 3 hours twice a month, planning at 2 hours twice a month, it worked out to be about $7,200. So I will bring additional information back on that as I hear from it. And that's all I have.
Cool, yeah, you know, we need a new website, or our contract with, our web host, ends this year, and so John's got the ball rolling, about getting our new website up and rolling, and so these ADA, these new regulations are on the list of things to do when we build all that out. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Let's see, exciting news. Our Public Works Department, Zach, our project manager, sent a message that our vehicle garage project went out to bid, so that fencing project is out in the public sphere awaiting bids, and I believe the bid opening is, I don't remember, couple weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. Anyway, so excited to see that finally coming to fruition, and hopefully it comes in budget. This week for me is all things Board of Review. We've had a lot of people coming into Board of Review. I think after we're done, I want to talk about that a little more, because I think we do, by expanding our, what qualifies for poverty exemptions is a good start, but I think it's still not doing as much as what we could do, so I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, you just learn so much about our residents who come to Board of Review. Regarding the sign out front, this came from Cemetery Buildings and Grounds, long dialogue, but Our Media and Communications Director, Rich, designed some signage, and he's going to go talk to a couple of different companies and get some quotes back, so we can update the signs out here in front of Township Hall. He will be coming to present to you next week on our township identity branding that he's working on. So you'll learn more about kind of what he envisions for us moving forward with regard to how do we communicate via signs in the public. But the main ones that's rolling. I'm sorry, 2 weeks, the next board meeting. And then the flagpole, as your reminder, the board approved a budget for design and tree removal to give our display and the flag an oomph. I believe it was at our last board meeting, the maintenance director was out identifying the trees that were going to be taken out. He's got to collect quotes for tree removal on those. And then I signed the quote from OCBA to begin the landscape work. So that stuff is all in process too. So with that, I will close my comments for the evening. I thank you all for your time and service. Thanks for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.